Welcome back to GaleForceWins Season 3.
The GaleForceWins podcast is proudly sponsored by Newfound Marketing, a digital marketing agency located in St. John's, Newfoundland. Visit our website at newfoundmarketing.ca to find out how we can help your business grow. Newfound Marketing, a complement to your marketing team.
Well, folks, here we are. This is GaleForceWins. My name is Jerry Carew. With me is Leslie Penney. I met Leslie probably 25 years ago, maybe 30, actually, when you were just starting in the business. You'll tell us how long that's been. One thing I want to mention is that this is a new studio, and I apologize to you, Leslie. You've been here for almost 35 minutes. This is the first time we've actually recorded in here. We got new microphones, new curtains, new lighting, so it took me a little bit of time to figure it all out, but we've been having a great chat, and I think, years ago, that's one thing about you I noticed, that you were very open and welcoming, and I love that about business people, because frankly, if you're open, then people that are working or selling to you will do better. Anyway, enough talking for me. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie Penney, as you know, and I'm a broker owner at East Coast Mortgage Brokers. I've been in the business now for a little over 15 years, and it's all I know at this point.
We're going to get into that, but I'm going to take you back even further. Prior to recording, you told me a little bit about your growing up. Tell us where you grew up and a little bit about how that shaped you.
Yeah, good question. So I'm a Bayman originally. I grew up in Kingscove, a little small community on the Bonavista Peninsula. I'd say there's probably about 60 people left there now at most. My family fished and farmed, I guess, small time. So I grew up on the water in the summers and that sort of thing. And like I said, my father was a fisherman, and he took an early retirement when I was 15 or so. And said, listen, it's yours if you want it. And my brother was fishing with him at the time, and I was like, no, he can have it. I wanted to go to university, wanted to get a business degree. Oddly enough, I think the plan at the time was to own a restaurant. Realized that wasn't for me either. And I got my commerce degree at Mon, and I got right in the mortgage business right away.
So tell me about that time on the water. GaleForceWins has spent some time in the Navy, as you know, and we've been on various ships. What is it like? I can't picture where Kings Cove is exactly. Is it totally open to the ocean?
Yeah, it's a pretty open bay.
Yeah.
So if you look at our harbor, you can see right down through to the Cape and Bonavista, essentially.
Right. So does the heavy seas wash up there?
Yeah, the sea can get pretty rough.
Yeah.
Like I said, where we fished, you have lobster pots that after a good storm, there wasn't much left.
I got to say this, your dad's still alive?
Yes.
Yeah. What's his name? Searle, if you're watching this, I have deep respect for anyone who makes a living on the sea. In fact, I'd love to come out and sit with you and chat about life as a fisherman, because you know what? Alan and I haven't actually done that. We haven't talked to anyone yet about that. But it's such an incredibly difficult way to make a living, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, historically, it always has been. I'm sure the business has changed over the years, and it's different now than when my father was at it, no doubt. But
so what about that upbringing would have served you well to become a mortgage broker?
I think it's a work ethic from dawn to dusk. You're always at something, and like fishing was one thing. He always had some farm animals. So, we've always had cows and things in between. So, if you weren't fishing, you were cutting hay, or we had a strawberry farm at one point. So you're dealing with that. So I remember one summer, so I had like a student summer job.
Yeah.
I was fishing, we were at the crab and stuff, and then we also had the strawberry farm. So you were picking berries and doing all that, and then at hay, and then probably a boat. So it was a busy time. But I think a lot of that's what shaped it for me, because from dawn to dusk, man, there was no stop, and I guess as a teenager, sometimes you're like, man, this sucks.
So Talk a little bit about your schooling, grade school, high school. You're in a mortgage business. Is math something that you excelled at, or?
No, I mean, I've done well in school. I mean, in all disciplines, I guess. That was always important to me for sure, And like I said, I never really end up with the plan to be in the mortgage business. Honestly, when I went through a commerce program, my wife actually graduated the program the same time, and the plan was to move to Toronto. I had got a sister up there.
Yep.
Moved to Toronto, obviously business degrees, and hopefully get a job on Bay Street and go that route. But my mom was sick with cancer at the time, and I didn't want to go too far from home. So we stuck around for a bit, and I saw the opportunity to come up as a broker, and I was like, why not? Kind of fits my business. I always had that entrepreneurial side of me that I didn't want to do like the accounting piece or anything like that. I wanted to be in sales, finance of some sort. So yeah, it was a perfect fit.
Not to get too personal, but my dad died of cancer when I was 14. So did your mom?
Yeah, she passed away. Yeah, I was 25.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Not easy, is it?
That's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you look at it and I see other people that are my age and much older and have both their parents, and I kind of wonder sometimes, of course, what that's like. But, I'm thankful on the other side that I wasn't 5 or 6, so.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'll tell you for me is that it shaped me. It's the most difficult thing that ever happened. Watching my mom struggle, that was all very difficult. But I also will say, and this, not to sound weird, but it was certainly an education. You see that life's an incredibly beautiful thing, but you can also see how it can go bad.
Yeah.
And I personally have worked every day to make every day the fullest, and it was the gift that my dad gave me, and probably didn't even know it. Darn.
Right.
So
yeah.
I don't know if that's shaped you at all in your experience with losing your mom.
It's in perspective for sure. I mean, you never know at any point in your life anything can happen. And I think it's a daily reminder, to be honest, especially in our world where, as a business owner and as a broker, every day is a work day. And really, you got to put that in perspective because you don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. So it's a fine balance, I find, between working all the time and making sure you're working enough that you're able to survive and still enjoy life because you don't know when it's going to change.
Well, you're right. And I think the entrepreneurial endeavor can be a real challenge, as you know. You have livelihoods at stake. We'll get into that in a second. But I find the balance difficult. In fact, I wanted to slow down in the pandemic, and I even articulated that to many people. And then this podcast happened, and it's just been a whirlwind. But I worry sometimes, Leslie, that I have a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I really have a baby in this business that's also part and parcel of the whole thing, right? So how do you balance all of that with where you are?
That's a great question. It's something I still struggle with, but I try to work on all the time. And again, we've got a 5.5-year-old little boy, and I mean, he just started kindergarten, and everyone said that once they start school, look out, because it just goes so much quicker. And I can see that because even the past few months have been a blur. But I think it's really taken time for me to spend time, obviously, with him and my wife and family and so on, and not getting caught up in the fact that you need to be at work all the time. I mean, I did. It's like I said, my wife is the same. We before having a child, like we worked and that was it. And that's all we knew. And it's why not just work instead of just lazing around or doing whatever, right? But it certainly changes when you have kids because again, it's going so quick, and you want to cherish those moments as much as you can.
Some balance, though.
It's tough, and like I said, when in our business where there's deadlines and other clients' needs, it's not like, you can do that tomorrow if the deadline's today or whatever the case may be. So it's a tough balance between trying to make sure everyone else is getting what they want and your family's getting what they need.
Yeah. 5.5. What's your son's name?
Lincoln.
Lincoln. Cool name.
Yeah.
So, okay, you went to high school. You were in Kings Cove. Was that the high school? Was in Kings Cove?
K to 12.
What was the high school?
St. Mark's.
St. Mark's. Yeah. Not familiar with it. Being a young man who grew up in the East End and still lives in the East End, you know. You can say what you want about that. Now, I have traveled the island, so I do know a good bit about it, but I do not know that. But so, okay, you graduate high school. You go to Memorial University. Yeah. Did you go directly into the business program?
Yeah. I guess first year, whatever that looked like, and then right into the program.
So tell me a little bit about that. I had my own experience there, good and bad, but tell us a little bit about that experience and how it shaped you.
It was great, honestly. Like, I enjoyed university. I think at that point, though, you know, I'm 17, moving away from the Bay. And I would say I was, like, you know, half cultured. It's not like I wasn't familiar being in the city or anything. And I look forward to that, to be honest. But, I mean, getting out on your own at 17 and, you know, operating your own household, we'll say, it's a lot. And I never really got caught up in the work thing while going to university because I really wanted to focus on school and getting through that as best I could, of course. And, I mean, business school was great, you know, and met a lot of great people and still friends with.
Well, I tell you right now, I can tell by listening to you, you had an advantage. At 17, you're out on your own learning about what it is to run a household. I didn't have that. I went to Mon, lived with my mom. Absolutely. God bless her. She gave me everything. But it was pretty easy for me.
I know.
Right?
I worry about that with Lincoln. I mean, you know, what's it going to look like when he's older? You hear all the stories where they're with you until they're 30.
Yeah. Well, I made the mistake of telling my 15-year-old I was 29 before I moved out.
The bar set.
My wife hates that story, and I'm not going to edit it out. But so you're in university, you get your degree, and you come out with a Bachelor of Commerce. Did you concentrate in anything?
Not really. The entrepreneurial piece and the finance piece, and I'll say finance, the investment side is kind of what piqued my interest. So I've done most of the courses that I could do in that, but there was no focus as such like accounting or HR or anything. As I was saying to your son earlier, I just found that I was a bit more independent, and going through the program, there was nothing that really spoke to me in terms of like the work term side or whatnot, that I was like, yeah, this is what I want it to be. Yeah. I guess maybe just my background always, like, my father never worked for anyone as such. He always worked for himself, and that's all I knew. So it's kind of the way I wanted it to be, just not fishing.
Thanks, Cyril, for shaping this man. So yeah, you come out of university, and what was your first role? You remember that? Broker. I'm sure you do. So you went straight into being a broker.
Basically, yeah. I took a little bit of time off. Like I said, where mom was sick at the time. If I recall, I think I might have fished a little bit that summer. Yeah. Because there was planning we were going to move away shortly after. But no, right into the business.
So when I met you, would have been 95, 96, 97, 98, something like that?
No. I'd say it was 2010.
2010. Yeah. Wow. 2010. Yeah. Okay, because what year did you graduate from?
2008, which is shortly
2008. After. Yeah, you're a young pup compared to me. I came out of business in 1993. But so you come out of business school, you go right into being a broker. Yeah. I have my experience being a salesperson in the advertising world, and it was scary. Yeah. What were you feeling? What got you going? You know, your day one. You don't have a clue what you're doing. Let's be honest, right?
Oh, I say to people all the time, I didn't know if a mortgage was fit to eat. Didn't know the difference. Yeah. But I was in a good place at the time. I was very supportive, of course. And I think the education thing was the big thing for me. Again, you know, I was 22, 23, and trying to tell people that were 50 what they should do with their finances, you know, and I found that intimidating, to be honest. Yeah. The one thing I kept reminding myself is that this is what I study. I've got my business degree. This is what I eat, breathe, sleep now. So I am the expert, or will work on becoming the expert. You know, I think they say after 10,000 hours, you've kind of mastered your field, whatever that may be. So just put in the time and the hours to get there as quick as I could.
So you're, for the salespeople, and this is a very, very business-oriented business podcast. You have quotas as your first month. You're looking at it. You got X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
Would it go by dollars or people, or how would you guys?
Yeah,
work
normally
it?
files, volume is kind of how our business is kind of articulated.
Yeah.
Number of files, volume kind of depends on how you measure it, but
Yeah. And how did you, the salesperson in me is really going to dig in a little bit here now, like in terms of, like, it's one thing for me, I have business to business closing, business deals
Right.
where I'm reaching into a business person's pocket and advertising budget. Everyone needs a house as well, but, closing an individual without pissing them off, how do you, again, there's a fine line there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the motto that I've always had, and I guess it's what drives you every day, is you work for the referral, not for the commission.
Right.
And I've kind of preached that to everyone on the team that, yes, this is how we get paid. Obviously, everyone's got their own personal goals, what they want to make and where they want to be in life and all that. And that's very individualistic and that's up to them. But ultimately, you can't get caught up in getting a deal done or a fall done for a client for the sake of getting it done if it's not in the best interest of them.
Yeah.
Because it's very transactional at that point. You'll never hear from them again. It's a small town, it's a small city, it's a small province, and word travels fast, as you know, twice as fast if it's bad. So
you're out of school. You're a mortgage broker. You always wanted to be on your own business person. You kind of are as a mortgage broker, aren't you?
You're still independent, regardless.
At what point do you now become, because I think you were with another company at one point, so just talk a little bit about that and the transition, I guess, to that company and then to being the broker owner.
Yeah, again, like I said, I was an individual agent for, I think it was 6 years, and then I started out my own brand under the same network, again, with the plan of hoping to get other people with me that wanted to do it, same age, same mindset, same plans, and then, like I said, currently with the East Coast, the two previous owners had approached me at the time, and honestly, it was just a good fit, good people. It was obviously a great brand, culturally a great fit for me, and we had just had Lincoln. And
they approached you to join their company,
Yeah.
not to be an owner at this point, not yet.
Yeah, to be an owner.
To be an owner right off the bat.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what, it's probably a good move for me personally. Like I said, Lincoln was just born at the time. Not probably realizing what I was getting into commitment-wise and time-wise, especially where I was so used to working day and night all the time, And I just thought at that point that having that extra support and just network of other brokers around that could help if something came up. If I was on vacation, who knows what life was going to bring at that point. It was just a great fit.
The decision to do that move, though, day, week, month, 2 months, like what's going on between you and your wife at this point? Because you're now becoming an owner, and how many people are working with you?
We've got 32 altogether. 33 actually. Yeah.
Big responsibilities. One thing to have clients. Now you got clients and 32
Absolutely.
Staff. So talk us through that a little bit.
Asked the guys at the time, and it was a painful process because I'm I won't say indecisive, very analytical, right? So I'm just looking at every possible scenario, and you're giving up your autonomy, doing your own thing to go partner with others that now a couple of people have got an opinion on what transpires. I'm sure my wife was like, just make a decision. At that point, 100% she was, because she tells me that all the time. And again, the guys were very patient. They work with me, but I didn't rush into any decision by no means. It was a few months for sure.
Well, it's funny you talk like that, because I mean I've had a job as a business development guy, but on the side I had what I call myself as a semipreneur. So I was a sole proprietor for 33 years. Now I'm in a partnership with Alan. Right. We have a really, really great partnership. But I think I've had to work hard to compromise, because I've been on my own for so long. Now I have someone else that we have to consider, and I think Business is about compromising a lot of times, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And my partner now, Deanne, we work really well together. We're at two different points in our lives, and we're also two different people. So, it's a bit of yin and yang there, I think, which balances it out pretty good.
I agree with you 100%, because, if you're about the same, exactly the same, it'd be a little bit boring, and, you might make mistakes. And
yeah, that's right. It'd be a lot harder to make decisions, I think.
Yeah.
Right. I'm glad that we're both not super analytical in that sense. We kind of balance each other out for anything that needs to happen, especially if it needs to happen quickly.
Yeah. So now when you came in, you had two other business partners.
There was
now,
four.
Now it's two. Two of you.
Yeah, that's right.
Two of you running the ship, 32 people with you.
Yeah. Like I said, one person had retired. The other person's still on as a great broker, still working with us. Just, didn't want the responsibility, and I can really appreciate that because, like I said, there's definitely two hats.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So at this point, for those who don't know, talk a little bit about what it is that a broker does. What I think there's probably a lot of misconceptions out there, and educating people is probably a big thing. So take some time to just talk a little bit about how you would help an individual.
Yeah, great question. And like I said, we get that quite a bit, and there's a lot of misconceptions, especially over the years, And on our side of things, it's a little bit different. So, generally, if someone's looking for a mortgage, naturally you kind of go to your bank, because anytime you want money, you go to your bank, Our case is a little bit different, and, we're independent, so we don't work for any particular financial institution. We've got a network of banks and credit unions and lenders and trust companies and so on. And for us, it's about the client. The client experience, of course, and making sure that the client gets what they're looking for. If you go to one particular lender, they've got one box that you fit, and that's it. Whereas our case, we've got numerous boxes. So yes, you might fit in 5, but which is the best one for that client based on their financial situation, whatever that case may be. And that's ultimately our job, is to make sure the client's getting the best mortgage advice and product that they can get out there, rather than just taking what's handed to them. And as I said to you a moment ago, for us, it's the relationship and the referral, not just the transaction piece. So we're steady rip, just helping clients that we probably dealt with in the past 1, 2, 5, 10 years. And that's the big thing for us, is that we're always there for the client no matter what. Right.
Well, I think I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience, and judge me as you will, but I've always used the bank, and probably hear that a lot. I will tell you, without mentioning the bank, the experience this time in the middle of COVID, frankly, was horrible. And I've been in sales and business development for 30 years.
You understand.
What I didn't get is why it went sideways so many times, and the communication was all mixed up, and this person was moving and that one was moving, and it was like, it was a difficult experience. Yeah. I love hearing what you say, because I have a financial advisor that I can actually talk to every day. Right. He's not at the point where he's got so many clients that he can't handle them. So that personal touch, Leslie, is really important to me. In fact, there's times when when I got laid off from the car business, like having that guy to talk to, very important, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think you just hit the nail on the head. So a lot of times, if someone's dealing with, we'll say, Bank A that you've always been with, that's great, but the person you're dealing with, that might change 5 times. So each time you're trying to picking up the pieces to familiarize themselves with your file. And it could always be a different piece of advice, because everyone interacts differently. Everyone's got a different opinion, I guess. Whereas on our end, it's me or my team or whatever the case may be, and we're always there. It's not like we've moved from being a broker this week to a different type of advisor the next, right?
I told you I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I'm probably going to put you on the spot a little bit. If I was to ask you this question, well, not if, I'm going to, what would you tell an individual out there, what is the most important, or several pieces of important information that they should know around the industry that you're in, mortgages and whatever? Rates are going up and down, well, mostly up, I guess. So I guess, dispel some of the confusion, maybe. What would people need to know?
I think from an industry perspective is that historically brokers or people that you went to if you couldn't get approved at a bank or whatever the case may be, and that's certainly not the case. We all have a bank, and I've never had a bank mortgage product because there's always been a better product and rate that's out there. So I would say that really we're the specialists rather than the generalists for mortgage financing, where you just get generally better rates and better results. That's probably one of the biggest things that people have that misconception on. And no one has to pay us. And I'll say there's caveats to that, like certain products and certain situations, but generally whatever bank or lender we place a client with, they just pay us a referral fee.
Interesting.
Yeah. A lot of people don't. The first question they get, how do we pay you? But generally the bank or lender, I mean, they don't have, we'll say, a sales force or a staff, so they don't have to worry about that. You just pay it on an individual basis, And rate isn't everything. The first question you get from people is, what's your best rate? What rate can I get? Yeah. There's probably 20 questions we got to ask before we can get to the point of discussing rate, and the rate is only part of the equation, And I always use the analogy, it's like going to a car lot, which you'd probably appreciate, and saying, what's your cheapest payment? And it's a two-door coupe, and they need a truck. So you're getting the cheapest payment, but it's no good for your work business that you need a truck for.
I love that, what you just outlined. Being price comes up a lot in business, and you're right. Get me to the bottom line. What's the cheapest thing you got here? Yeah. Well, really? And I will tell you, when I was starting out in business, I always found it a struggle to guide the person to the more expensive options.
Right, yeah.
But you're right. If you're in the client's best interest, well, you know what? It's $1,000 versus $500, but that $1,000 is what you need, right?
Yeah.
And I guess shame on me if I can't articulate it.
Right, true enough. But I mean, obviously, as you said, rates have been going up. Luckily, fixed have been kind of on the downward slide here lately. Hopefully that continues. But, the difference in 0.05 or 0.1% in a rate is negligible if it means it's a completely wrong product for someone.
Yeah. With respect to, you alluded to it a little bit, you're talking about mortgages. It's just the mortgage product, is it? Or do you get into a person's financial guidance? Do you give them some guidance as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively holistic, but honestly, we're a big fan of staying in our own lane. I'm not the one to give financial advice as such, but that's where our network comes into play. I've got all these people in my network, so if you need to talk to someone about X, Y, or Z, you're not on your own. I can put you in the hands of the right people, whether it be an accountant or a financial advisor or an insurance planner or whatever that looks like for that person. Yeah. Right.
In terms of trends within St. John's, is there anything that you can share with people? Like what's happening in terms of maybe do you talk about like house types, or are you into that kind of data? Is there any data that I know you've got some videos you're putting out, but what kind of data is out there that you would talk about and direct people to?
Yeah, I think right now, I mean, the media, there's a lot of, I'll say, negativity around the rates in the market and sales prices and sales activity, plummeting. But it's all relative. Our market here is a bit of an anomaly, and thankfully it's been going well. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was out in Alberta for meetings with other top broker owners across the country. And when I had these conversations with these other people about how our market's doing, they're flabbergasted because they're down 30 and 40%. And here, luckily, like I said, our market has proven to be pretty resilient so far. Our home prices as well. Rates have gone up, but as I said, it's a 2% increase in rates is a lot more manageable on an average $320,000 purchase than what a lot of these people are dealing with at $1.5 million and $2 million. So it's all relative. Yeah. Right. And that's why I always say to people, the news has a purpose, but also don't be afraid to dig in and just dive a bit deeper to see how it really impacts you as an individual here locally. Okay. And like we had a number of presentations from top economists from the banks and the insurers and those guys, and each one just showed how well our market was performing compared to everyone else. Right?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
There's nothing gets me excited more than hearing about Newfoundland doing well. Look, I want everyone to do well, but this incredible place that we've carved a living out of, the more that people do well, the better for all of us.
Yeah.
On that note, I'm going to talk about geography as a Bayman. Your words, not mine, okay? Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
No. You did say it. What's your geography? Like, what's your coverage area for your brokerage?
We're based out of St. John's here, of course. We have brokers across the island, and we service pretty much across the country.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you can go into other provinces too?
Yeah. So
Wow.
there are different ways to approach it depending on the licensing in certain provinces.
Yeah.
But and you know what? To your point, like COVID changed a lot of that. It changed a lot of the policies around, even digital signatures and stuff like that, which made it a little bit easier for sure.
Well, it's funny you say that. In the car business, signing off on a car had to be in person.
Yeah.
And it always drove me crazy. Now, I don't know, I've been out of it since COVID. I would imagine that's changed.
Yeah.
The inconvenience, I remember there was a gentleman needed a cosign for his daughter. He was in Labrador.
Right.
And it was this administrative nightmare.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
so you're telling me now none of that matters. It's all those barriers are gone?
Yeah. And again, up to that point, up until March 2020, it was much the same. A lot of lenders didn't accept, like, we'll say DocuSign and different e-signature platforms, but they pivoted on that pretty quickly, and it's stuck around, thankfully, and it's a game changer for people.
Well, there's an awful lot of challenge that came out of the pandemic, but I tell you, listening to you talk and just breaking through barriers, administrative bullshit, drives me crazy. Yeah. The fact that you guys now have pivoted and that's, DocuSign works, that's customer service, right?
100%. So, like, even yesterday I had a conversation with a client, him and his wife, 2 kids, both kids in hockey. They don't have time to breathe. And the fact that we just got on a quick phone call for 15 minutes, went through the details, he was like, you saved me a trip from CBS, me and my wife and 2 kids, and they can make it hockey practice on time. And he was like, it's changed since the renewal, 5 years ago.
It's funny, do you meet, so you'll meet with clients virtually as well, right?
Yeah, basically whatever the client prefers.
Yeah.
Phone, Zoom, in person.
It's funny, being in business development for 30 years, a handshake's incredibly important. But the ability to, you're sitting in my office here, and I've worked down here for 3 years straight now, and the ability to actually get on a Zoom call with someone, no matter where they are, the convenience as well. Like, I love coffee shops because that's where I've made my living, and I joke that when we retire, so you work in a coffee shop. When you retire, you end up in a coffee shop. But when the pandemic opened, I'll never forget it. I was working for Newfoundland Marketing, and I had to meet someone, and they had restrictions on the number of seats. Went to Jumping Bean on Elizabeth Avenue, full. Went to Tim Hortons on Torbay Road, full. Finally got into Newfoundland Chocolate Company there in Torbay Road Mall. We were 45 minutes trying to get to sit together. And I mean, I had done, one day in particular, I did 12 Zoom meetings, and the efficiencies of it, but I think we all now are hybrid,
Yeah, that's
so,
a good word. Yeah, I mean, for us, it comes into client preference, of course, and a lot of times clients prefer the phone call or the Zoom meeting just because it's more convenient for them.
Yeah. So, Leslie, you're a broker owner. Let me ask you this: so, what do you see in the future for you, for the brokerage? It's called a brokerage, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
What do you see in the future?
A lot of growth, to be honest, and I guess from my partner and I, after the buyout last year, we focused on that. I mean, the big thing for us has always been the happiness of the agent. Yeah. And whether they want to do huge volume and that's what makes them happy, or if they want to do a little bit because they want to spend half their summer at the cabin. Whatever that looks like for them, we're just there to support them. So we're not huge in terms of. You've got to hit certain thresholds. If not, you're not part of the team. Yeah. We want to help nurture them, whatever that looks like for them, of course, but also being there to be able to support their business, But there's still a lot of potential. I mean, the market here is huge. Yeah. And, as I said a moment ago, a lot of people still go to other banks. So our, we'll say, competition are the banks that people just naturally gravitate towards. And there's still a lot of value to add to people's personal finances. So I think that's going to be a big part of it for us in terms of, expansion and growth.
Well, I think I'll tell you this, as a business guy who craves customer service, I know I will be going to you guys in the future. So a few years from now, because we've locked in. But anyway, one last thing we always do on this podcast is ask what a piece of advice. There's lots of people that are watching this, many seasoned business professionals, but there's some young people starting in various industries. Looking back over your career, what advice would you give someone who's listening?
I think what served me well, as you alluded to in the beginning, is the work ethic is important. I mean, you got to show up every day, and again, not to tell anyone what a schedule should look like, but you really got to make that commitment, I think that's a big thing. Nothing comes easier with it, the work, as I'm sure you see with all the work you guys have put in the past several years. But then the flip side of that is a balance piece. I've seen too many people that have, older than me and not much older than me, have gone through and they've worked incredibly hard and incredibly successful, and then their health changes or something happens with a family member, and it's like you can't get that time back. So it's funny, I was saying to a buddy of mine last night that I've been at this now a little over 15 years. And I feel like I should be retiring, but I still got 20, 30, 40 years left, hopefully. Yeah. But I think it puts it in perspective in terms of, obviously wanting to be successful, whatever that looks like for that individual, and putting the work in for that, but also having the right people around you to help support you. And take time to enjoy it, because you never know what's going to happen.
Well, I'm going to say this. I really appreciate you coming on with me today. You certainly have someone I've been watching, on LinkedIn. Go to Leslie's LinkedIn page, and we'll have a link in this to it. But you're posting some videos there periodically, which I think are very helpful. I'm going to say this. This is an example. You are an example of someone who has come from a small community, guided by a hard work ethic. I can't wait to meet you, Cyril. This boy here, I would imagine you are very proud of. And I think just, you know what, Leslie, keep doing what you're doing. Keep guiding those 32 souls at that business and moving them forward, because this province needs more Leslie Penney.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate your time.
It's got to be fun. It's got to be intriguing for me to be at it.
Every single time something happens, I say, there's no way this is taking me out. This isn't the day.
My analogy to everybody is we need to work together here.
When you have a belief as an entrepreneur, you kind of stick to that belief, because hope is everything. And, it's the future ambition that will always fuel you.
You can do what we do here.
Love your family. Learn from your family.
Don't take yourself too seriously.
Live in the moment. But nothing compares to being, with my kids.
Thank you for tuning in to GaleForceWins. That's GaleForceWins, WINS.com.